Good morning. It is Monday, so it's Motivational Monday, and I've renamed it today. I've realised I've called it Make It Happen Monday, so we'll go with that as well. So it's the 23rd of November 2020. We are now coming towards the end of the 11th month of this year. And for many, this has been probably the most trying and most testing and challenging time, but also for lots of people, lots of learning has come from it about themselves. So people who normally love to have lots of people around them have been very much spent a lot of time on their own. Those who perhaps like a lot more time on their own have had more people around them. Everybody has been kind of put into new kinds of areas of ways of working, thinking, feeling. And some people are okay through this, some people have been all right, and some people are really, really struggling. And I truly believe that it's up to us as individuals to make sure that we're okay, that we're resourced and supported so that we can support other people. And what can happen with people who are naturally very good at supporting is they can make sure they're there to support other people. They can make sure they're there to give and receive and help as many people, but forget to take care of themselves. And so today's subject, good morning, whoever's with me, please put a comment, say hello. And if you haven't given StreamYard your permission, just pop your name in the comment. That would be lovely so I know who I'm talking with today. But today I want to talk about the difference between strategy and therapy. And the reason why this conversation has come up this week is because I was reading an article actually from one of my trainers and mentors that was talking about professional development, personal development, and then emotional well-being. Good morning, whoever just said hi, just pop your name in the comments so I know who's with me, because the screen that I'm using, I can't see your name. I can just see Facebook user, which is always lovely to know that two people are with me. So we're just talking about the difference between professional development, personal development, and therapy. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I know that when we're in overwhelm, when we're really, really stuck and we're struggling to get help, it's really difficult to sometimes know who to ask for help. Let alone even if you've got a thing, if you have a thing about not wanting to ask for help, then that's a challenge in itself. But if you don't even know who to ask or where to go, and I think my perception of the world is, and I'd love to have your feedback, please let me know, is that if we feel overwhelmed and we feel quite emotional, often I think that the signposts are always to go and see a counsellor. That's pretty much the NHS will give you 6 weeks of counselling. Hi Magdalena, oh it's lovely to see you, lovely to see you. But they don't necessarily know about all the different types of services that are out there. So I thought if I spend a little bit of time with you talking about the difference between sort of strategy and therapy, then at least you'd have some idea of where you would need to go and you could ask for those help. So you've got people who listen to you at a therapeutic level that will be listening for things like, when you're really emotional, but you will know that there's been some trauma or a bereavement, or maybe there's even addiction. There's those sort of stuff that's going on for you, and so therefore there are people like psychiatrists that will deal with the extreme, if you like, in terms of mental disorders. So when we've got things like schizophrenia, personality disorders, those kind of extremes, and will often be a combination of talking therapy, but also usually medication or drugs. Then you've got a psychotherapist, which is again someone professionally trained to listen in order to help you understand and make sense of what's happening, what's the triggers, what's causing it, which then gives you the ability to make a decision. And a counsellor, which is very closely linked to a psychotherapist, will be helping you to understand what's happening, making sense of your experience in order that you can make decisions. And a coach, for me, is about actually helping you to decide what you'd like to have happen going forward. So you go, this is where I am now, this is where I want to be, and they help you to work out the steps. Now, because I'm trained as a clean language facilitator and I'm trained in clean coaching, the clean language the origin of it was from a psychotherapist, David Grove, in the 1980s, who was using it to help people with post-traumatic stress. So what's been interesting on my journey working through with people is that I start very much at the professional development. So what would you like to have happen? So you want to be better at managing your time, you want to be more productive, you want to be more effective, you want to be better at selling, whatever it is that you want from your professional development. And then the other question we ask is, how do you need to be? And that then tends to start looking more at your personal development. So you're actually looking at whether you need to be more confident, whether you need to be more assertive, whether you need to be more patient, more tolerant, whatever it is, the qualities about you that actually help you to sort of tap into you. And then And what I found work with my clients is if you get to know yourself at a pattern level, you'll start to know how you do you, and when things happen or they repeat, it's not a surprise to your system, so you get less stress as a result of it. And the last question we'll ask is, what kind of resource or support do you need? And that's where I've been really having a bit of fascination on my own personal journey this year, is because the first two are very much about coaching and going, well, this is where I am and this is where I want to be, and helping you to develop strategies. What I've come to understand in the work that I do is I often help people get clarity of what they want and the confidence to make it happen. And sometimes that just understanding what kind of help they need and how they need to be in order to ask for the help is all they need. But sometimes that keeps it very logical. It keeps it very much sort of in your head, and it's like, well, if I do this, I get this response. But we don't always get the response that we want or we expect or we need. Hi Mary, lovely to see you too. And so one of the thing about the therapy side of it, and this is something I discovered when I was working with people who are usually supporters and carers, because they tune into people and they pick up on when people need help, and they're very sensitive and they're very aware of other people needing stuff. But often they're aware of what's going on around them, outside of them, but not paying attention to what's going on for themselves. And so getting clarity of what you want and how you need to be, which is more strategy basis, often can help the supporter be more resourced in order to support more people. And there does come a time sometimes, if the part of the trigger, now this is a bit of my own story, if part of the trigger for you being such a supporter is because you're doing it because of perhaps some experience in your past. So with me, my mum was, my sister was poorly when she was born when I was 3 years old. So my mum was quite stressed and suffered with depression. And so from a young age, I was wanting to make sure she'd make her smile. I wanted to do things to make her happy, which meant I really paid attention to what worked for her. However, what did happen is I developed some sensitivity that would hit me emotionally, and I'd have a physical or physiological reaction to it, as if people were unhappy. And it was only when I realised that I'm just doing some work on this, that sometimes we need to be able to be in a therapeutic environment where we can talk about what's going on. And if emotion arrives, there may be a younger version of us that was hurt or upset, then therapy allows us to access the feelings and the emotions of a younger version of us. And the beauty of doing that is that we can start to be able to talk as the adult now to the younger version of us and heal whatever that younger version of us didn't get to hear or see or feel at that time. We as the adult can now give that younger version of ourselves the nurturing, the encouragement, the reassurance, whatever it is that we need. But I've found that you can't do that sort of work on your own. You have to be able to have somebody that could listen to you and allow you to experience whatever the emotions are. And the reason I'm sharing this is because this year I've invested quite heavily in my professional development. So I've been investing in my group facilitation coaching. I've done some personal development by actually following my own courses. So the Do Delegate or Ditch course is running right now. So I've been actually going through it myself again and reminding myself what I need to be able to work, learn and live at my best. And I've been booking on to a therapy course where it's been a place to actually talk about my feelings, talk about the emotions that's coming up. And what's been really interesting and revealing is to recognize how often if I do something and I don't get a certain feedback, that I experience shame. And it was something that I've been curious about with Brené Brown's work, but there is something in therapy that when you can express yourself and somebody else is able to listen without shaming you, without judging you, that you get to hear parts of you that perhaps have been boxed away and locked away because it wasn't appropriate or wasn't the right time, or you put the other person's needs and wants above your own, and so you suppressed and pushed those emotions away. That's when therapy is often needed, and people avoid it because they one of the metaphors clients use is say, I don't want to open up a can of worms. So I just want to put it out there that when you get the right environment and the right therapist, and you've got and I'm very lucky with my clients that we can do all the personal and professional development, and because I've got the training, if there is some therapy that's required, I can do that. If it's sometimes I have to refer, but not very often. But we can do that. I can sit there if there's some emotion that's arriving. They don't have to rebuild a relationship with somebody else in order to deal with it. We start the pragmatic, and then if healing is required through, expressing some pain or loss or fear or shame, maybe from the past, in order to let it go, actually to totally and utterly release it. So I'm kind of telling you that because I've been doing a journal for the last 10 days, and every morning the journal asks me, how am I feeling today? And I've realized that I feel really at peace. And I do believe it's because I've done professional development, personal development, and therapy. Now, I spent most of the time in professional development, training it to be a better listener. I then looked at what do I need to be able to work and live at my best, so I actually got my personal development. And that was a really great strategy. It meant I understood when people triggered me, why they were triggering me, and for sometimes just knowing that why was enough for it to stop triggering me. It didn't bother me. But there were certain things that if I hadn't had some therapeutic listening, where I was being listened to, and I say therapeutic listening, it's not just that I've gone to paid like counsellors or psychotherapists, although I am working with them right now. It's actually been creating a network of friends where I can speak my truth, where I can be a bit ugly and know that they can actually hold that space for me. And for me personally, in 2012, when I was at rock bottom, I knew the professional development, I knew the personal development, but what I didn't have is I didn't have a big enough circle of friends that I felt it was okay to say when I didn't feel okay, when I was having thoughts that were not very pleasant. The only person I was telling was my husband and one friend. And I didn't have a big enough circle of people that I could call on where I was allowed myself to not be perfect, not to be, always being positive, always being upbeat for other people. And that's when it becomes a strategy where you can do it because other people need you to be happy and okay, but you also have to have people where it's okay to not be okay. And whilst you might start with a therapist if you're really emotional, what I discovered is that I just needed more friends. I needed more people in my life where it was okay not to be perfect. It was okay I can be the motivator and I can be the actor. I can act it. Even when I'm really at my lowest, I can put the face on and I can perform in order to motivate and inspire people. But that doesn't mean that's what I was always feeling on the inside. And it's just really lovely now to be able to put the three things together, personal, professional, and therapy together, in order that the inside represents what I'm feeling on the outside and what you see on the outside, which was not always the case. So three things then. The questions, as always on a Monday morning, is this week, what would you like to have happen? How do you need to be? And what kind of resource or support might you need for you to be like that? And I hope that by talking through the difference between professional, personal, and therapy, you've also got some ideas where strategy and therapy, where the difference is. And I'd love to know what if Magdalena and Mary are here with me today, please pop a comment below. Is anything I said, making sense? Did you relate to it? If you don't relate to it, it's also okay. That's feedback for me. It was just something that came in my meditation today, and some things I've been thinking about that I wanted to be able to put out there, because I think people get stuck and don't ask for help because they don't understand what kind of help they need. And going back to the tin of worms, which I forgot I didn't finish, is people often don't go to counselling or whatever because maybe they know about something that happened in their past. They don't want to open that can of worms, and they feel that the emotion is going to be too much, it's going to be too overwhelming, and they can't do it. So I want you to leave you with this thing to think about. Emotions are temporary and transient. So when we do not stay in a permanent state of sadness or permanent state of happiness, they are things that are triggered and evoked by our thoughts, what we see and hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. And so once they're evoked, if you sit with sadness and don't give it any more stimuli, it will simply come and go. So whatever happens when it comes to emotions, we've kind of been taught in the professional and sometimes in the personal development world to create strategies so that you fake it till you make it, smile, stay positive. But what can happen, and this was an expression Jenny Gordon used last week that really it added to this sort of thought process, was in the face of relentless positivity, what we do is we forget to honour the sadness or the loss or the grief or even the anger or the frustration or the shame. Sometimes in the relentless positivity of wanting to help others, we don't even shine the light on ourselves. We don't celebrate how friggin' awesome we are or how amazing we are, because we don't want to make other people sad. We know that other people are struggling in the world, so therefore us bragging about our awesomeness feels a bit unkind. And so what happens, whether it's joyful emotions or sad emotions, we suppress them, and they end up sort of locked away, and then they end up coming out in our physical well-being in terms of, upset stomachs and headaches, or even worse. I do truly believe that when we suppress our emotions, things like cancer, etc., that the body can't cope with all of that energy, emotion in the body, because it's not being allowed to release. And we have to have places where we can go, where we can be authentically us. So if we're upset with something, there's got to be people in our world that can listen to us, and we can be as angry as we need to be, because that is our experience in that moment, but it's temporary. And it's when people, when you're listening to somebody and you hold them in that state that they're an angry person, no, they're a person who has just experienced anger, it's temporary and it's gone. Equally, the joy side of stuff, that's temporary. So we have to work on the feedback that we're giving our system in order to maintain joy. And what I'm noticing myself, since I've been doing more of the therapy side of things, and I've got more friends in my network that I actually am going to see a professional therapist, is that none of this stuff hangs around in me anymore. It's simply, I'm noticing that I felt this or I felt that. And actually, most of the time, I can experience peace inside rather than worrying about what people think or feel. So I haven't had any more comments. It is 1:15. I will leave you again recapping the questions, and I'm here to coach. If you put your comments below and you want some questions to help you get professional development or personal development, and even if in the privacy of your own space you want to answer the questions to yourself, you can do. But just know that if you are struggling right now, don't struggle alone. The Step by Step Listening community is here to support you, and we want to help you to make it happen, whatever it is. And strategies can give us some foundation. They can give us some stability if our world is a bit unsteady. So we get really clear what we want to have happen. We get really clear how we need to be, so we make sure we're managing our time. But ultimately, we have to be able to have a great old bragging party and sometimes pity parties. We need people around us that can listen to those and just let us express it without trying to fix it or do anything to make it better. So on that note, have a gorgeous week, and I'll see you back on a line again at 30th of November next Monday, 9 o'clock. But please answer below. What would you like to have happen this week? How do you need to be? And what kind of resource or support might you need? And we're here to support you in any way we can. Have a great week. Speak to you soon.